Welcome to Art with Interstellars One-on-One. I am Valorie Lewis, also known as Spicy Mocha. I should change that. Valorie Lewis, and my lovely host, Stephanie, guest host. I don't know what to call you, hostess with the mostest, amazing person, Stephanie. And today we're going to talk all about Art with Interstellars, our event that we hold once a month. We thought it would be cool to come together and do an event to tell you about what happens in those events and to explain it a little bit better, because I think there's some confusion about what actually goes on in those events. So that's what this event is about. We hope that you all enjoyed this presentation. The way it will go is Stephanie will talk for a bit, then I'll talk for a bit. Then we have some special guests who are also going to share for a bit. And then if we have time, we'll open it up for question and answer, any questions and answers you might have about the event or about what Stephanie and I do as practitioners. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie because she's going to kick it off.
I am going to kick it off. Hey, everybody. Okay, so here we are. Let me share my screen. I am going to talk about how it all started for me, because the Art with Interstellars, can you guys see that? Yep, okay. The Art with Interstellars started in, at least on in my part, with working with process art. And then it eventually led to what I was like stunned to realize was channeling. But process art is basically creating from the inside out, not being told what to create or how to create. And there's a whole bunch of guidelines and stuff with it. But I started 25 years ago with something called process painting. I started my process painting journey and I began to practice using creativity as a way to process unmet emotions and to meet the present moment. And I still do that. I still use that. And it's gradually evolved into more of a whole spiritual practice. For years, I practiced being present and to allow what wanted to flow through me, even if it didn't make sense. It was through this practice of allowing and creating and non-judgment that led me to something I never expected. As time progressed, things began popping into my paintings that I didn't fully understand. This painting was host to my first interstellar being. And you have to realize, like, this was probably only 5 years into my process art journey, maybe a little bit more, but I don't know if you can see them. Right down in here is this little gray ET. There's a star field behind him, and then you can't read it, but above his head it says "What if?" So yeah, it popped in, and I was very surprised. So yeah, host to my first interstellar being. And I quickly shut that shit down because then, like, right after that, this came in, and that was a little, like, that freaked me out a little bit. I just wasn't ready. Like, I just was not ready to receive, and that was fine. So I continued to paint more for self-discovery. However, things were starting to change. Like, there was nothing I can do to stop it at this point. Something wanted to come through me, and they had things to say. And no matter what I did, I mean, you could still see things starting to come through in my art. By the year 2011, I was facilitating process art, had a brick and mortar studio, and began to flesh out my dreams. This was a big time of expansion. It was amazing. Some of the stuff that had shown up in my paintings started to, like the ET stuff, again, was on the sidelines at this point. But 5 years later, after we opened the brick and mortar, that would start to crumble. So within 5 years, the brick and mortar space was closed, and I converted my garage into a studio. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and Hashimoto's. So out of necessity, I began working in altered books and art journals because I couldn't work in huge paintings anymore, which that's part of the process in process painting, is like working really, really big and for a really long time. And my body could not support that. So things were starting to unravel, and that's when it all shifted. My body continued to demand I slow down, go within, and allow. And my only choice was to unwind. And I'm still practicing the art of unwinding because sometimes my judgments can get in the way. It was in this unwinding that things started to really shift. I could no longer hold back what wanted to come. So I don't know if it was something about working in a smaller book. I think that was part of it, although I can't really say why. And then just not having the physical capability of holding stuff back anymore. I don't know if anyone can relate, but like when you're spending so much time and maybe unconscious time holding stuff back, like you just get tired. And so I was exhausted and I just couldn't hold it back anymore. I began to connect with my higher self, interstellar beings, and to receive messages. I literally have a whole book that I started out a year with it. And the first, I think, 15 pages are just messages. So the more I allowed, the more was revealed. And within a year or two of this happening, my friend Tim told me about Awkwardly Zen. And through my friendships made in this community, I realized what was going on. I was channeling. And I have to give a big thanks to Ari, Lori, and Val for helping me realize that. Valorie and I connected, and once we decided to work together, I then began waking up with information in my head about ways to facilitate this process to others. So it was more like, I was basically given information that basically told me that if I use the process art stuff, that other people could experience this too. So we'll get into that later. But so I began waking up with information in my head about ways to facilitate this process with others using movements, intention, process art principles, and calling in my team. When Val added her magic, it was undeniable. Art with Interstellars was born. Facilitating this process and allowing it to flow through me is what truly lights me up right now. And I feel grateful and on purpose. It's like all of the stuff that I went through has led up to this. So thank you very much. That is my story in a tiny little nutshell.
Thank you, Stephanie. I love it. I love it. I love seeing your process and your journey with art. And so
Thanks.
now I will share my journey of how I started with Interstellars and moved towards this collaboration with Stephanie. Give me just a moment here. It's like I've never done a screen share before. All right. There we go. The origin story. So, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, a Syrian queen was born. She was sent to Earth to reincarnate as a human. After a lifetime of what the fuck moments, like seriously, what the fuck, she finally remembered her true origin and began to reconnect with her homeworld. And that is me. Wasn't I cute? Y'all like my baby picture? I had to look a long time to find that. All right, so my remembrance came as a series of vivid memories of my other life among the stars. And one of those visions that was handed to me from my interstellar other self was that I was to begin doing work with light codes, with healing, with the DNA activations, and with being able to give their message to Earth, which I wasn't calling channeling at that time. And so the more I felt into, like, out of all of those messages of what they were trying to tell me to do, I was like, okay, I can do light codes. Like, I don't know about all that other shit yet, but I can do light codes. And so the way that I was guided to work with the light codes was to get it, because I was seeing them in my head all the time, was to get it out of my head and get it into some type of, so I could see it visually. And it was art. I had already been painting for a while, just doing a lot of abstract work. And so the interstellar energy was guiding me to paint the light codes as well. And so what came next was a bit unexpected. So in between my connection with the interstellars and these memories and these visions coming to me and seeing the light codes and getting instructed of how I was to work with everything, I lost my mind a little bit. I thought I was going crazy. I had to reach out to my friends, like, I'm hearing voices, and it's not spirit guides, because spirit guides are generally accepted by the spiritual community. It's aliens. Aliens are talking to me. I think I might be crazy. So as I was working through that, and I was still grappling with the idea of beings from other dimensions and other star systems being able to communicate with me through thought, and trying to make sure I was still sane, then it's when I decided to just put it on canvas. So I was still in that in between. I don't know if this is right. I don't know if I'm crazy, but I'm going to paint it out. And paint artwork has always been therapy for me. So it was a very good match for me to figure out what was going on. So what came next was my first channeling session with the interstellar energies, painting light codes and conversating, as I call it. This was my first painting. And this is actually, to this date, one of my favorite painting, period. When I was painting this, I started to just think that I was going to start painting and I was going to put down the light codes that were in my head. What happened was a full-blown conversation with the interstellars. As I went to paint and I was asking what next, and they were saying, draw this symbol over here, draw this symbol over here. No, that's 3 dots, not 4 dots. And so it was a whole full-on them telling me where to put the symbols, how to put the symbols, how to create this piece of art, where to add the color, where to add the splatters. Like, it was completely and I will tell you, at this time, I was very angry with them. It was more of a battle. It was more of an argument. Like, what do you mean? What are you doing? What are we doing? What are we doing with my life right now? And why am I listening to you? And what's going on? So it was a very interesting time, but this is the very first piece of interstellar art that I ever did. And I think I stepped away from that with so many more questions, first of all, but an appreciation for the connection that I had, because I realized, like, oh my God, I just painted with interstellars. Like, their energy told me where to put the colors and where to put the symbols. So that was the beginning of my own journey with light code artwork, is what I called it back then, still call it. I did a whole event on light codes, and I did some more channeled work with light codes, offering those commission pieces way back when. I think that's been like over 1.5 years ago. So I was off and running with the interstellar work, but I still wasn't understanding exactly what the interstellars wanted me to do with the light codes and with their message. I knew that there was more. They were telling me that there was more, but I was still trying to figure out what that more was. So here's some more of the work over time. Light codes in it. And there's that piece is right behind. This is one of my most recent ones. And so I knew that there was more that I needed to be doing. And around this time, I started talking to Tim and Stephanie under the Art Life Mind. We were doing some Art Life Mind events, and Stephanie and I were talking about how Interstellar showed up in our artwork. And it was just this really cool conversation. And both of us knew that we had to do something with it. Like, we were both being pushed to do something more with it, to share in some way. And I think it was Stephanie that came up with the idea of the format of, well, let's just do a session where we're creating art with the interstellars. And that sounded great. So it was very much destined to happen that we began working together and creating these events, Art with Interstellars. I feel like Stephanie brought all of the artistic talent and all of the art knowledge to the table. And I brought, well, we both brought the interstellar energy. I was more focused on light codes than art itself, but with working with Stephanie, I will definitely say that my idea of what art is has expanded, and I feel a lot more comfortable with calling it art, including light codes. So yeah, so it was an amazing collaboration, predestined in the stars long before we were born into our physical bodies. And so it's just been beyond words, the way that our energies are coming together, and the way that our interstellars, we have separate teams of interstellars, are both directing us to work together. And even our teams, I feel, work very well together as well. So that's how the event Art with Interstellars was born, out of both of our desire to bring this to a larger audience, to share what we were doing. So that's a lot about how we both got to this point of creating this event. And now Stephanie and I would both like to share with you what the heck actually happens in these events, though. This Art with Interstellar thing, I've been seeing it on your calendar for a while now, Valorie, but what the heck actually happens in these events? So we're going to go over just a basic outline of what does happen in these events. So the first thing we always do when we open up an event is we set the space. Setting the space for us is generally before we come together, Stephanie and I are setting our own personal space. We're calling in those interstellar energies. We're making sure they're present and accounted for. We're asking if there's anything we need to focus on. At least that's what I do. Is there anything I need to focus on in this session, or anything I need to be aware of? We just energetically set the space for ourselves and also for the group. And so as the members start to show up in our group, our participants, let me call them that, we open the event with the meditation. We do a briefly guided meditation so that we can set the space for everyone, calm ourselves down, and call in those energies and ask those energies to be with us and to assist us with our artwork. That's calling in our friends. And then the next thing I do is I usually tune in and I deliver a very brief channel message from the interstellars. And it's whatever they want us to know in the moment as we begin to create art. Yeah, whatever they want us to know about the art we might be creating, about the current situation that might be going on, answering any questions that they feel might be floating out there. It's always nice to hear from them, just to hear that, yes, we're here, and yes, we're happy that you guys are here and that you're doing this in a creative way, and we're willing to assist you. That's kind of the gist of those messages. Sometimes a little bit more information comes through, but that's how we set the space. And so once everything is set up and we're ready to start working, I will turn it over to Stephanie and she'll talk about the actual work, what happens in this session art-wise.
Yeah, so the art portion is basically, I mentioned earlier that I was waking up with sort of, I don't know if you want to call them downloads or whatever, but just ways that I could use what I had been using for the last, 20 plus years and incorporate it so that other people could do this. And basically that's by setting some, like, having guidelines. So one of the first things we do is I'll read over a list of guidelines. And I have them here. I won't go over all of them, but just so you get a taste. And I want to also, I feel like I want to read something that I got from my team right before one of the very first ones that we did. And they said, connect to us through your heart. You will find it difficult to think your way through to us. It's about feeling and frequency. So that coincides with the guidelines, which came to me, years ago from process art. One is that this art is about connection and it is just for you. So it's not about creating a beautiful piece of art, although many times it might be, but it's about connection, and it's about dropping from our head space into our heart space. and for that reason, we do, after I sort of get things started, we will create in silence unless Valorie or I get like a little ping to say something. It's about embrace and play. They made this really clear. And this is another tenet of process art is, you know, embracing that play, that sense of wonder, and act like you're a little kid and just be messy if you need to. Engaging your imagination, and if we need to, we scribble to get started. It's all about movement and moving energy. And something else that came up as we started doing these is we realized that the art making could just be a catalyst. So if we start out with creativity and moving color and everything, sometimes it quickly moves to, okay, I'm getting symbols, or whatever. So it can be just a catalyst too. Going back to the main thing that I love about this is that you don't have to be an artist. I wasn't an artist when I started way back when. You don't have to know how to paint, how to create. It's about moving, it's about color, it's about being engaged and connecting with the heart, and then connecting with the team, with the interstellar beings, and just saying yes to what wants to come, even if it doesn't make sense. And that's another tenet of process art, is saying yes to what wants to come, even if it doesn't make sense. And a lot of times it doesn't make sense initially. If during the time that we're working, if you feel stuck, we're around, you can check in with us. And we have questions to ask, and we can check in with our team as well. So that's something that happens. And then after that, we create and see what happens individually. And then we come together at the end. This is one of my favorite parts. And we share how it was for us, and then what we created, if that feels safe for you. You certainly don't have to, but it's become like a really potent piece to the class, I feel like. And a lot of times what we find is that we've all painted similar things, we've all created similar things, similar symbols. Yeah, so in a small nutshell, it's it's one of those things that's not super easy to describe in words, because what's happening is so heart-based, but that's what it is. And I think maybe to get a better understanding of what it's like, we can open it up to Rowan and Lori. So they have both there they are. They've both participated and are kind enough to share how things went with them and some of their experiences. So
Let's turn it over to Rowan first.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay, so hi everybody, I'm Rowan. I think I've been to the Interstellar art events like 3 times already. And I always love coming to them. I always feel like doing this art in a group setting helps me to connect better with the energies, and just connect with that heart center feeling more. So this is the first art piece that I did. And when I remember when I first started painting this, I had a really hard time dropping into that heart center, because I'm someone who's very up in my head all the time. And so I kind of just started scribbling and just doing whatever I wanted. And I remember halfway through, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then I feel like that's kind of when this light language came in. If you can see it, it's in the gold. And I didn't really know this was light language when I first started painting them. I just kind of, it's that feeling I get in the wrist and it just wants to come through. So, but afterwards I realized they were light codes as I was sharing this. And so kind of the process of how I did this one, was just moving color around. And I feel like the light codes are kind of like a conversation I had with the Interstellars. So in in a nutshell, sorry, I'm getting a little nervous. Okay. So let me go back. So what I discovered from painting this piece was kind of a representation of my homeworld, which is from the Larian system. And so when I was painting this, I kind of felt the earth, and that's kind of what was represented in the green and the red in the space. And I feel like the orange was kind of like a reincarnation into different worlds. And it's kind of hard to explain, but that's just what my experience was for that one. And so for this next piece, after the first one, I kind of had a better understanding of the beings I was connecting with. And there was this one energy in particular, who's Lyrian, who comes to me when I connect with the Interstellars. And so she was kind of showing me this image. I had no idea what it was at first, but as I was just moving around and kind of in this meditative trance, I kind of like understood better. It was almost like a story was unfolding as I was doing this art. And so I would just get these symbols and these feelings, and I would write down the words because it's kind of hard to put down what they're trying to convey to me sometimes. It's more like just an energetic feeling. So for this one, I kind of got this celebration of sorts. It's as if I was seeing it through her eyes. And I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think that's kind of part of the mystery and the fun of doing these art. But it was almost as if there was a marriage or a celebration of sorts. And I guess she just wanted to share that with me. And this next one, I had a better understanding of what I wanted to kind of go into with them when I first started. This was actually inspired by Valerie's painting that was behind her. And I wanted to kind of channel that into my own. And so this snake just came in. And the snake is one of my past lives that comes through a lot for me. And I'm not really sure what else to say about that. They just really wanted to have a conversation with me about that. So yeah. So
Love that. Thank you, Rowan. That was awesome. That snake one is probably one of my favorites as well. I just love all of the color. Thank you so much for that share, Rowan. And next we'll move on to Lori.
So when Valorie and Stephanie first invited me to come to an Interstellar art group, I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not an artist. I can't do this. But then as I kind of sat with that and I really love those two and trust them, I was like, okay, let's try this. And my Interstellar group was basically saying, you need to do this. And I was like, okay. So because I really have fear around, I mean, I'm not an artist. It's like those were beautiful paintings. So here's one of my first ones that I did just to show those of you who think I can't do this because I'm not an artist. So as you can see, you don't have to be an artist to do this, but it was really fun once I let go and I started doing it. And along the side over here, as I was doing it, it was I started receiving all this light language, which I don't normally get, but in the course of the class, they would say, okay, and they literally just described to me how to make the symbols and where to put them. So I want everyone to understand you don't have to be an artist or have any particular skill to do this, because that wasn't the point. The point for me was I opened myself up. I really moved into my heart, like Stephanie instructed, and allowed the interstellars to step in and guide me and kind of guide what I was doing. And this particular picture, it was a representation of another world, and these spiral things, they said to me, were portals. And it was one of the ways that we can access these other dimensions. And so it was just showing me that there's a way to interact and that we all are really one ultimately. And it was about just understanding that and connecting with them. So I personally find it so much fun. It frees me up. It allows me to let go of my judgment about myself being an artist and really just tune in to that guidance and allow that to come through me in whatever way it needs to, and express it in whatever way I can as a non-artist person. But I love it. I love the meditations that we do and just that interaction with the interstellars. And I never know for sure who's going to show up. Yeah, I have specific interstellars that work with me personally, but a lot of times in the class, I'll have different beings show up that I'm not as familiar with, and that's okay. And they simply guide me and direct me as we're going along. I highly recommend it. It really connects you with those interstellars that want to work with you, want to communicate with you in some way, and allows you that freedom to open up to that energy and begin to understand how to connect with them, is what I've found.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you
Sure.
for sharing. That was wonderful. And I'll say, when we first started, I don't know about Stephanie, but myself, in that first session, super nervous. Like, we knew we've been working with interstellars, but we had a connection with the interstellars before we even started working with art. And then we added art, or at least I did for myself. And so I had been working with it for a while, and my nervousness was, as I go into setting this space for others, are they going to have the same experience? Are they going to have any experience at all? Are they going to be able to connect? What if they can't connect? Like, all of these things going through my mind as we set the space and invited our interstellar friends in. So it was so affirming also, and it's not me, y'all, me setting the intention, but knowing that they stepped in and then they helped with this energy, and that, yes, when they stepped in, yes, others could feel the energy. And yes, people who had never arted this way before were able to art with this new energy. And people who hadn't written light codes before were coming in and writing light codes. It was just so affirming to myself that, okay, this is something, because there's no way. I didn't tell Lori what to put. I didn't tell Rowan what to put. There's no instruction in these classes. We're not telling them what colors to put, or, hey, you should try some light codes. There's no instruction. So for all of us to be working in silence with our papers not on camera, and then we come into the share to see that everyone has written light codes, or everyone has done something interstellar created, is just so affirming to, yes, there is something that we're connecting to, and we're all connecting to it. And Lori, I love that you showed that picture with the spiral on it, because I remember that session. We all came and showed our pictures, and all of us working in silence, none of us had seen each other's work. All of us had drawn some form of a spiral in our artwork. And that was just like, you can't make this shit up. Somebody was there instructing us. Some energy was there that was greater than ourselves, saying, y'all need to work on spirals today for whatever reason. So I just love how these events have turned out. I'm so grateful to be able to work with the interstellars and to work with some of the participants, and of course to work with Stephanie. Stephanie, is there anything that you wanted to share about what you?
Probably a lot of what you just said. Like, when we first started, I felt the same way. Like, okay, this has been an ongoing thing for me. It's been an ongoing thing for Val, but what is going to happen? And it was affirming. It was so validating that first time when we all started sharing and we had similar experiences, and people were, you know, writing words or light codes or symbols, and a lot of the symbols were the same. It just was like, it blew my mind, and I don't know, it filled my heart. It was amazing. One thing that I did want to add is that I've been told a lot just from my team that the reason that a big reason that this works is because creativity is a gentle way to like it's a gentle way to do it. And that's the reason that it worked for me, because I'm becoming much more accustomed to it. But at the beginning, like I shared, it freaked me out. And I didn't want to move too quickly with it all. I wanted to be able to just like lightly touch in, and something about the art, the creativity keeps it gentle and at a pace that feels comfortable. Yeah, so I just wanted to add that because I feel like that's important.
I love that. Thank you, Stephanie. Just a second here. All right, getting the screen share back up. We have a couple of more screens to show you. All right. Thank you for our lovely participants sharing their experiences. So this Art with Interstellars that we've been talking about and introducing you to happens on the last Saturday of every month at 11 a.m. Central Time. I'm not even going to try to translate. Find it in your own time zone. It is on our calendar and it has been set up all through first quarter. So we've got January, February, and March are already scheduled and available for you. Our next session is going to be Saturday, January 28th. And you can RSVP on Meetup. I'm going to drop the link in chat. The cost is $22 to participate, and that is split evenly between Stephanie and myself. So y'all know we are not partying on y'all's money. It's just to help cover the cost of running these events. So we hope that if you're interested in these events, now that you know a little bit more about them, that you will go ahead and sign up for the one that suits you. And then finally, I would just like to once again thank Stephanie for her wonderful assistance in pulling this together. Collaborating with you is always fun. You can contact Stephanie. Her website is Stephanie Gray Art. She also has a link tree, which I'm sure she will drop that link in the chat as well. My website is Goddess with an Attitude, and I just have to give credit to SlidesGo because that's where this slide was created from. It's my baby picture again. All right. And I think we are going to go ahead and open it up to question and answer now. Unless Stephanie, did you have any other comments or anything you wanted to add?
I think it feels pretty good. I've been wondering if there's anything else that wants to come in, and I think it's all good.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, we will go ahead and open it up to question and answer. And I do see that there is a question already waiting in the chat. The question was, my first painting, the one with the black dripping on the top left around the infinity. What did it say? What did my first painting mean? Girl, I don't know. They just tell me what to paint. No. But the infinity symbol was interesting because that has shown up time and time again, and there it is in that one as well. And every time I go to paint with the Interstellars, they're like, put an infinity symbol. And I myself resist that. I'm like, I'm not going to do another infinity symbol because then all my paintings are going to look alike. But they have been telling me the infinity symbol. I haven't felt into it to see exactly what that is, which is an interesting question. Maybe I'll ask them next time I sit down to art with them. But so the infinity symbol was just the first thing that I put on the canvas, and then the light codes came around it. I will say specifically when I'm doing art with the Interstellars and doing light codes in that container. I do often get a feel for what the light codes mean. Just to give very brief light codes, it's not like one code means one thing and you can like put a bunch of codes on a piece of paper and read a sentence. That's not how it works for me. It's more energetic for me. So I will get a feeling. Sometimes I'm sitting down and they're saying put these light codes and they're telling me how to draw the light codes and I'm drawing them. I get the feeling that the whole piece is about joy, or I get the feeling that the whole piece is about love. So I get the energetic feeling of what those light codes are meant to convey. And working with light codes is energetic work. So there is energy in that picture. If you stare at that picture long enough, you're going to get some kind of message. You're going to get some kind of connection. You're going to get some kind of energy coming back off of it for you. That's the purpose of my personal artwork, is that there is energy in all of the paintings that I do. So I hope that kind of answered your question. With that particular one, that one was, if I remember correctly, and I'm talking about the first one with the paint dripping down the side. If I remember correctly, that was more, I can only convey the feeling of it. The feeling is they were showing, I was like among the stars and they were showing me, it was like I was drawing a map. And they said, you don't need to know what this map is for. And you don't need to know who this map is for. But when the time is right, you'll be able to look at this and this map will make sense and it'll be a map to where you need to go. I got some kind of a sense that there was something that there was going to be a point in time where we were lost and we would need a reference point to find our way to wherever we were needing to go, and that's what this was for. And so that was that particular piece. I got a very clear understanding that it was some kind of map. I don't know a map to where, and I don't know who the map was for, but I figure that it will make itself known. They told me as much. It will make itself known to who it needs to be known to when the time is right. So I've got maps before. That was the first one. I've got maps in that piece and I've got maps in other pieces. And then I've got just ones that were just feelings, like this one is meant to convey this feeling, or this one is meant to open this portal, or so very much energetic goes into my, without having an actual like meaning. I don't know if that kind of answered your question. Y'all, it's hard to explain interstellar stuff in a human words, but that's my best try at that. There's another question in the chat, and I'll let Stephanie go on that one. It says, do both of you do commissioned pieces with the Interstellars? If someone wanted to get a piece made by you, where should we reach out?
That's a good question. I've never put that out there, but I would certainly be open to it. However, there are times when I already have a piece made and somebody is very drawn to it and they'll end up with the piece because the piece wants to go with them. And, but yeah, if somebody wanted to reach out, I would certainly be open to that. You could find me at my website.
I love that. Thank you. And yes, oh, go ahead, Lori. Yes.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, Stephanie, you also have some of your paintings on Redbubble, something bubble.
Yes, I have a Redbubble store, which is also on my website. And it's prints of that. And I have been told that there are energetic properties to some of the things that happen when I paint with the Interstellars. So yeah.
If y'all go to Stephanie's Redbubble, I'm gonna tell you my favorite painting. It's across the room, so I can't grab it right now. But it's the one that she showed on one of her slides with the figures in it. And there's a coating that they do on it that makes it, what is it called? Like shimmer effect or hologram? Y'all, it's fire. Y'all get the one that's got the special coating on it. It's amazingly energetic. I love the fact that you can get it on a variety of different products on Redbubble. I'm not there yet, but I love that. So y'all check out Stephanie's Redbubble site. It's amazing. It's affordable. I especially like the one with the shimmer effect on it. As for myself, commission pieces, I did do commission pieces at one time, and I did not realize the energy that would go into creating that. I think I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do a commission piece and I'll have it to you in 2 to 3 weeks. Y'all, I damn near broke my neck trying to get those pieces out. So I do commission pieces, but please don't hold me to 2 to 3 weeks. It's going to be more like 4 to 6 weeks, because what I've realized is I really need to sit with the piece and make sure that the correct messages are coming through for the individual. and to not rush the process, because sometimes I'll sit down and it's just not there. It's just not meant to be right then. And so, yes, I do commission pieces, but there's a long wait for you to get your piece. I would love to do a commission piece again, and you can just reach me by email if you're interested in that.
I would just say that it's really worth it because she did one for me and I absolutely love it. So it's so worth it. The wait is really worth it.
Oh, thank you, Laurie. Okay, let's see. How does it work with other art mediums? I have had experiences while crafting, primarily making figurines and such out of crystals and craft wire. Ooh, where a finished project just seemed to pop into existence in my head with no input from me. Like it shifted, like a being needed to enter this world and use my hands to get itself a physical presence on this plane. I don't know what they mean or what to do with them. So I guess the question is, do we work with other mediums as far as when you come to an event, can you, I would say yes. We've never had that question answered, but art is art is art. So yes, if you want to bring your clay or your crystals or whatever medium you want to work with, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like it's the creative process in general that in itself, when we can move out of the way, is a form of channeling. So, and then when we set the intention, we invite our teams in, then yeah, absolutely. I think that would be really cool.
Yes, yes, that would be super cool. I would love to see that. Now you're giving me some ideas. Another question. Have you ever felt your hand felt like someone's writing with your hands, like channeling? Stephanie?
Well, sometimes the most profound experience I had, there were two. The first one is that painting that you mentioned. I basically started out with a huge canvas and I just told my team, you get to paint whatever you want. And I literally just, like, it did at times feel like I wasn't in control of my hand. I certainly wouldn't have picked some of the colors that I did pick. And then it ended up being, oh, okay, this is like them. They're showing me them. And then the other one is, I call it Dark Star, and it almost felt like, it's so hard to explain, like I was just uncovering something, like if you get a lottery, one of those scratch tickets and you're scratching I was moving, but it was like, as I was moving, it was uncovering itself to me. I was seeing it unfold. So yeah, that's as close as I can explain it. Yeah.
Yeah. For me to answer that question, have you felt your hand feel like someone's writing with your hand? Not like physically, like when you think of a pendulum moving, like you're holding it and then the pendulum is moving and you feel like that not in that way. For me, I have not felt that before, like someone else is using my hand to write specifically, but it's close. It's close in that. So let me back up a bit. My father is deceased and he was an artist. And when previous to interstellar arting, when I would art, I would ask for his input. Now his input was like, he was like standing in the background, like, you might not want to add yellow there. It was very minimal input. It was just kind of gentle guidance and where the picture needed to go or when I was done with the picture. When the interstellars come in, it's more specific. It's like a triangle here, a line connecting the triangle. Now cross the line. Now put 3 dots here. So it's very specific. So it's kind of almost like they're using me to paint with, but I don't feel them physically moving my hand. I have felt myself and my interstellar self merge together and create an art piece together. So I guess you could kind of say that they're moving with me, but it's still a little bit different. I don't think it's exactly what you're describing, because I'm familiar with what you're describing, like when you do channel writing or something and it literally feels like it's not your energy that's moving your hand. I've never had that quite that experience. All right, let's see. Let me see. I've had issues with deceptive spirits or aliens, which turned me off to energetic work for a while. I'm curious about your discernment process. What are boundaries that you set in place for who you talk to? Stephanie, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
I can go first. Every time I come down into the studio, I set my space. I light my candles. I am very intentional, and I invite my team of light in for the greatest and highest good. I set the space with incense, and it's all very, very intentional. Same thing when we do classes, or when I have a one-on-one session. It's all very, very intentional. And I judge by how I feel in my body. And I have to say that, you know, there has not been one time that it's been a bad experience. If anything, it's helping me evolve spiritually.
Agreed. And for me, before, like when I talked about we set the space, part of the setting the space is the same process I do anytime I have a Zoom event. And for me, in my mind's eye, it's this protective dome over myself and over the entire group and anyone who enters. And this dome is protected on one side by Michael, the Archangel. I have him standing ready with his sword. And then I also have Metatron set a grid over the entire dome for protection. And then I call in my guides and my interstellars and any other friends that are actually on my team. And I ask them to only permit those in who have the highest and best good for the group, or the highest and best group, you know, intentions for themselves, to be allowed into the setting. So and then I have crystals. They're sitting right here on my desk right now for protection. So I do try to do my best to make sure that I am responsibly setting the space for anyone who enters into any event that I'm hosting. I do that for the Interstellars. I make sure, as far as I can perceive, that there are no evil, bad entities, spirits, especially interstellar related, that are present or that are permitted. Even if they show up, they're not going to be permitted into this gathering. So that's what I do to protect the group. Again, we always recommend that even if you are in my group, like, don't just hold me for your protection, protect yourself too. So I do not think we have ever had a bad incident, or where we feel like something that shouldn't be present is present. And that's just how we work with setting the space, with protecting those who come to our events, and with discerning who is present and who isn't. And I just fully trust in the universe that even if someone who did not have their best interests tried to get into our group, it's not going to happen. They're going to have technological issues. The link's not going to work. Spirit is going to protect us, and our interstellar team is going to protect us. So I hope that answers your question. So we have an interstellar self. That was a question, and I believe that was in reference to me and probably Stephanie too, talking about our other aspects. I don't know that everyone has another aspect. I know I do. I know a couple of people that I speak closely with do as well, but I don't think that's necessarily the same for everyone. I think if you have any interest, or if that resonated with you, or if that sounds like, oh, I wonder if that's what's going on, then that's probably what's going on. Maybe feel into that a little bit more, ask your guides, do some meditations about it, come to our Art with Interstellars and see if you can connect and get that answer. So does everyone have an interstellar self? I would say, I don't know. I would say I don't know to that question. Does everyone, oh, Stephanie, did you have a?
I would completely agree with that. I really don't know. I feel that I do, but I don't know.
Does everyone connect with the interstellars? As someone who has never had such an experience, will it come through to me? I'm gonna let Stephanie answer that. And then I also want to hear what Lori has to say about that. Go for it, Stephanie.
So this is sort of a like a nuanced question, because I mean, this is just my personal take on it, but being shown what I've been shown with my team of guides, some of my guides are interstellars, and by interstellars, you know, that particularly means from the stars for me. So does everyone have an, what was the question? Does everyone have that? Like, is everyone experiencing that? I would say if you're connecting with a guide, it's a good possibility, but I don't know for sure with, it is very nuanced. Something like Valorie was saying, if you're drawn to this, my guess is you probably at least have one on your team, but that's just my guess.
Agreed. Lori, what say you? Does everyone connect with interstellars?
I don't honestly know if I think everyone has the ability to. It's more about, do you want to? And what fears might you have about doing that? For me, it happened kind of spontaneously that it started to come through in my channeling. I had been working with them personally in my own meditations and with some friends, but then as I was giving readings, they started to pop through, which made me really anxious. It's like, oh, wait a minute, maybe this person doesn't want to hear about interstellars. And every time though, when I would share that, the individual had a sense of it, of, oh yeah, I kind of been thinking that or feeling that. So I think it's more about just like channeling or receiving messages from spirit, from your guide or from the angels or from any light being. It's the same sort of thing about being open and receptive and allowing them to speak with you or come through and give you information in whatever way you can best receive it. A lot of times at the beginning, I received information only in my dreams at night, in the dream time. So sometimes I think that's where it can start, and it's paying attention to that. And then perhaps in meditation, following up with that when you're awake and asking, for those beings to step forward and begin to communicate with you. That would be my answer.
Yeah, agreed. The same as what Lori said. I don't know that everyone does, but I do believe that everyone has the ability to. It's just, they're there. We all have the ability to connect. And I also think that if you are, like you said, someone who's never had such an experience or someone who's wanting to have such an experience, keep seeking out events like this. Because we set the space and they are here with us, and maybe you're picking up on some of that energy and feeling a resonance with the energy. So keep coming to events like this where we're talking about interstellars, where I've brought my guides and Stephanie's brought her guides and Lori's got her guides, and maybe you'll pick up on some of that and feel that connection.
Let me just share that a long time ago, many years ago, probably 30 years ago, I was in meditation one day and an interstellar did step in. Scared me. I was not prepared for that. It wasn't that I didn't believe in them or was curious, but I did not expect that to happen, had no reference point for myself of communicating with them. And I sent him on his way. And he tried a couple of times and I finally said no. And then my guide stepped in, I think, and kind of shut that door so they wouldn't come in. Now, more recently, they've stepped in again, and I'm much more comfortable and receptive. So I have been able to build that relationship. So sometimes if you're not prepared for it, it can kind of be just, for me, it was just a little scary and I wasn't ready for it. And they understood, they were very patient, and then stepped back in when I was ready and began to communicate. So I think sometimes it can come and go. You can send them away if you're not ready or you don't want to communicate with them. They're not going to force themselves on you, I guess is the point.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I guess similar things happened, as I mentioned, like they would come through and I wasn't quite ready, but what I haven't said is that they have reached out to me through song lyrics and really, really gentle ways like that. And I never would have even put two and two together until I started like just unraveling the thread a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you could be, chatting with some and you don't even know it. I mean, I think it's happening more than a lot of us even know, possibly.
Agreed. And then the second part of that question, when you say, will it come through to me? I'm going to say absolutely, but this is why I'm going to say that. Disclaimer, because I know you and because I just asked the Interstellars and they just said, hells yeah, we'll talk to her. So yes, it will come through for you. Since working with Interstellars, have you noticed a difference in your conscious or daily life? That is a juicy question. Absolutely. Once I found out the Interstellars were on my team, I talked to the Interstellars, I would say probably not as frequently as my spirit guides, but I do know that even when I'm talking with my spirit guides are talking to my Interstellars. So it's all together and they're all guiding, giving guidance to me on my path. And what I have found personally is that with their input, I get a much broader and wider perspective of life, the universe, of everything that's going on. It's almost as if I'm looking through the lenses of someone who has never been here. Well, I am looking through the lenses of someone who's not human. And so that non-human perspective has greatly shifted my spiritual journey, my own self-awareness of how I fit in the universe, how humans fit in the universe. Yes, absolutely. Stephanie, how's it changed for you?
Oh, absolutely. It's changed 100%. And little things down to forgiveness, to just like you were saying, Valorie, my perspective on life and not getting so caught up in the little like details of the divisiveness and everything. And it's like, once I started this, it's like the door just like creaked open a little bit. But then once I got curious, it's just a whole different feeling. I feel like I'm not even the same person anymore, in a good way, So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And along those lines, Stephanie, that's one of the things that I get when I'm not stubborn and when I do tune in and when I do listen, it's that it's almost as if they're up there saying, "What? Why are you worried about the price of gas? Like, why are you worried about these little daily things? Like, I know you're human. This is what they're saying. We know you're human, but you don't need to worry so much. There's so much bigger at play here than for you to be spending 5 minutes, 2 minutes at the pump worrying about the price of gas or worrying about whatever I'm worried about in my here and now daily life." So that's what's helped me on a day-to-day basis, seeing that bigger picture and letting go of some of the worries and realizing that there's a whole lot going on that I could use my attention, I could focus my attention on those bigger, grander, more loving, more universal feelings, energies, instead of focusing on, like Stephanie said, the divisiveness or whatever might be irking me in my human life. So that's one thing that's helped me, is seeing that bigger picture has let me, again, when I listen and I'm not being stubborn, has helped me let go of some of the worries and the stress in my daily life. I'm still working on the not being stubborn part.
Oh, me too. And I definitely, if there's one major thing that I've learned from them, it's all about frequency, right? And so it's frequency. And I'm not even interested in listening to the music that I used to listen to because of the frequency and noticing how it feels in my body if I want to listen to this versus that. And yeah.
Yeah, great. Speaking of which, for Stacy, it was Stacy that asked about connecting. And for anybody who's interested in connecting, I'm gonna just throw this tip out here because you said music, Stephanie. Oftentimes when I want to connect, I will go to YouTube and I will specifically search YouTube for Syrian binaural beats or Syrian music. Anyway, there's a lot of music out there that is attuned frequency wise for the different interstellar groups, Syrians, Pleiadians. I've seen something for Pleiadians. I've never listened to the Pleiadian. I've listened to the Syrian before. And it really, when I use that music in those frequencies, again, I'm talking frequencies, when I listen to those frequencies in my meditation, I am able to connect on a deeper level. So that might help you as well. Let's see. Someone is asking what an interstellar actually is. Are they entities without a body? I would say an interstellar is a being. I used to, and used to is like as frequently as just last month, call them non-physical, and that's not correct. They're very much physical beings. Some of them are not in our dimension, which prohibits us from seeing them from our dimension, but they are very much physical beings who are from another star system or who are not from Earth. Simplest explanation, beings who do not have their origins on Earth or who are not currently living on Earth, but who are living among the stars, or some are, or among a different dimension. Some of them are walking amongst us, I believe, here on Earth, just in a different dimension, which keeps us from seeing them. Keeps some of us from seeing them. Some of us see them. So I hope that explains Interstellar. Stephanie, how would you explain Interstellar?
Basically the same way. Some interstellars that I have connected with, but on my team, have more of a light body, but and again, it's frequency, and some have like physical, but I'm looking at them now, physical bodies. Yeah, but I guess if you're gonna, like very specifically, when I think of interstellar beings, I think of the stars. So I definitely think of other planets, other systems, but also frequency.
Yes, love it. Make sure. Are they something similar to Abraham Hicks? Being an Abraham Hicks student myself, I feel I can answer that. Abraham Hicks, from my understanding, channels what they call a non-physical being called Abraham, but they refer to that as non-physical energy. And the reason why I don't think it's interstellar specifically, it might, and it's a collective. Abraham is a collective. So there may very well be interstellar energies within that collective. However, when Esther Hicks channels that entity, she refers to it as non-physical. And there was a distinction because someone sat in the hot seat. If you're familiar with Abraham Hicks, someone sat in the hot seat and asked specifically about what's the difference between you, Abraham, and Bashar. Bashar is specifically interstellar, and they say so when they come through their channel, Daryl Ankh. So when Abraham answered that, there was a distinction. So that's why in my brain, Abraham is not necessarily an interstellar per se. Again, they might have an interstellar energy within that collective energy, but they don't identify as interstellar because they themselves made a clear distinction between their energy stream and the energy stream of another entity that did identify as interstellar. So I don't think they identify as the same. Let's see. Maybe that could help us know where we're from or where we're connected to by which type of music appeals to us. Absolutely. I have tried to listen to interstellar music from other star systems, I guess you would call them. And some of it is like nails on a chalkboard. It's so annoying and so irritating that I could not meditate to it if I tried. And so I do very much believe that if you want to try that method of which one of these frequencies sounds the most pleasing to me, that might kind of point you in the right direction of your own origins, or at least where you may have incarnated before. Let's see. Are these frequencies something we can listen to before bed while falling asleep? Could I invite connection through our dreams? I would say yes. Stephanie, what do you say?
Definitely. Just like Valorie was saying, start listening to, like for me, I listen to solfeggio frequencies, and they have there's plenty of music that you can experiment with, and you could definitely fall asleep to that. And then inviting, just setting an intention, like you would set a room intention before you meditate, or, like we were talking about earlier, setting that intention to have them come to your dreams. Just invite them into your dreams, and if you need it to be like invite them in to come in gently, or whatever your intention would be for that. I think that's a great idea.
Yes, I love it. One of my interstellars connects to me through my favorite tree. Oh, I love that. Valorie helped me realize this through art. Oh, thank you. I love that. And there's a lot of links going over into the chat about different tunes you might want to listen to. Someone said the Spirit Tribe Awakening is a solfeggio tone. So yes, maybe check some of those links. Yeah, do we have any other questions? No? Yay, that means we did a good job. We answered all the questions, Stephanie. How about that?
Awesome.
So this is recorded. It will be posted. I do hope that you all check out that event. Again, it's on the 28th. If you don't get this month's event, it is every last Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time. You do not, if we have not emphasized this enough, let me hit y'all with it one more time. You do not need to have artistic skills to be an artist or to attend our event. It's all about working with these energies and having something visually represented just for you. It's not something you have to put on the wall or put in a gallery, or you don't even have to share it with the group if you don't feel like sharing it with the group. But it's an excellent way to allow yourself to get cozy with these energies, or even channel these energies if you feel so called to do. Let's see, can we save the chat? Yes, you can. And I'm not sure how to allow you to do that, but it should be the 3 dots in the chat. If you see those 3 dots, there's like a page, a happy face, and then the 3 dots, and it should allow you to save the chat. If it does not give you the option of Victoria, I will save the chat and send it to you. Just drop me your email. You can send it to me by private message. Perfect. All right, well, if that's all the questions, Stephanie, Rowan, or Lori, did you have any other comments or anything else you wanted to add?
It feels pretty good. Like energetically, it feels pretty solid.
I think so. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with us, for getting to know a little bit more about what we do in our Art with Interstellars events, and thank you for all of your questions. This has been really fun answering the questions and letting you all know what we do, and we hope to see you at some of our events upcoming. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful
Thank
evening.
you. Thanks for spending some of your evening with us.
Yes.
Have a good night.
Bye, you guys.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you. Bye.